I moved to Zimmerman in the end of 71, the population signs at 495 families.
Wow.
But they didn't count the lakes at that time. Just that one first section of Lake Fremont where it swings around there.
What does it say now?
5,000.
5,000 or
Pretty
6,000?
close to 6,000.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's why we have to build another water tower.
Yeah.
And a new church.
And
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the city has to build a new water tower.
But I mean, we're really looking at this area is going to be growing.
Oh my
That's, I always say, we don't want to be a large church. We're a small church with many members. Hello, welcome. I'm Father Kevin Anderson, pastor of Christ Our Light Parish. We're gathered here as part of our Igniting Faith Week. And part of that is we gathered some of the pillars of the South Building and also of St. Pius X. I've been here since 2008. I was assigned as pastor of St. Pius X in July 1, 2008. Delighted to be here, and myself and Molly will be hosting this event. But this time what we like to do is to go around and have each of you perhaps say your name and when did you start coming here, like either at St. Pius or at Christ Our Light? So why don't we go here?
My name is Eileen Bialka. We moved into the Big Lake area of County Road 15 on August 61, and we've been a parishioner here ever since.
Ron Matheson. My parents and grandparents were founders of this church. And I've been coming here ever since it was a hole in the ground with piles of dirt right over there. There's a picture of me next to the bishop to prove it.
I've seen that picture.
that's
Great.
fun.
Yes, you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'm Barb Prenicel. I've been here since November 15th of 71.
Well, exactly. Molly Weyrens, Pastoral Associate, and I'm finishing up my 9th year here at Christ Our Light. I know, it's crazy. 2012 is when I began.
And I'm Margaret Hoagland. I've been coming here since September 1971.
Well,
I'm Marilyn Herman, and I can't give you the date, but it's been about 48 years.
There we go.
About the same as us.
Yeah, good. Well, welcome. So glad we can do this. One of the questions, just to kind of start out with, is as you remember the dirt and the holes, what are some of the earliest memories you have of the church building and things inside the church building, how it changed, things like that?
Well, you start out with the basement. They dug the basement. They put in the walls. Then there's a railroad strike, so all the materials for everything else was sitting on a side rail someplace out in North Dakota the whole summer.
Oh,
Wow.
By this time, they had the walls for the basement in, they had the deck up, and we decided instead of meeting down at the old Legion Club on 169, we'd meet here in the basement. So they had tarps all over the place to keep the water off our heads because
wow.
some strange reason it rained every Sunday.
Oh,
Every Sunday.
And the pastor was Father Lynn, right?
Yep, Father Joe, he had this, I don't know if it's still around or not, they had this big vestment case way at the back end where the kitchen is now, and that was the altar also. As you sat on wooden folding chairs, they had kneelers of some kind there for us. And I remember it was a hard weekend for rain. And the entire Jacobs family, Ralph and Pat, their whole family, the tarp busted and the whole family got baptized. It was a mess. But I remember my dad telling me that when they dug the hole for the first basement, they got a bid from a guy with a Caterpillar for $125. They thought it was too much money. So they hired a guy from up by Santiago with an old-fashioned drag line for $65. That's why there's so many piles of dirt all over the place.
Oh my.
Wow.
Oh well.
Other folks?
when we came, somebody told me this story, that when you met at the Legion, when you had Mass at the Legion, the confessions were held in a Volkswagen, Father's Volkswagen. And we happened to buy that Volkswagen from him. So I was telling the people, oh, the words we hear in that Volkswagen.
Yeah, exactly.
The stories we heard.
If the walls could speak, right?
Yes, right.
Actually, when Father Joe first came here, he had a 53 Mercury.
Oh, okay.
So if you're sitting down there at the old Legion Club, he had a doily pinned to the roof, the ceiling of the 53 Merc. So he couldn't just look right at you. Well, you sat on one side of the doily, he sat on the other. This big old huge car, and everybody's standing out there watching it. That was a confessional.
That was, yes.
And then he went to the
Then he
Volkswagen.
went to the Volkswagen.
Okay,
That's
all right.
crazy.
Wow.
Wow, I love that.
And we had that Volkswagen for many, many years. Because Don drove to St. Paul with it every morning. And so that Volkswagen was very economical.
That's good.
Goodness. Anything in terms of like how the building has changed over the years?
Oh,
wants to
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When we had that first drive to expand, because it ended where those first beams were.
Okay.
And at that time, well, the church we didn't have the back, it went back further. And then Mr. Kramer's daughter was getting married, and this whole thing was just in shambles, you know. You know how construction is.
Yeah.
So he donated all the white curtains,
Oh,
so he
great.
could hide
Yes.
all it. Well, then he let that up until the rest of the church part was done.
Oh.
He was very generous. I was very thankful his daughter was getting married, 'cause, you know, it
Yeah,
hit a
well
lot.
done.
Do you remember that?
Beautiful.
Oh,
Oh,
man, that
wow.
was something.
After you say it.
Yeah,
And what year was that? Do you remember?
it was the same year.
About 1980, I believe.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, what a business that was. Oofda. And going around and trying to get people to
Donate.
pledge.
Yeah.
Now, was that the same altar that they used in the early church? They just moved it?
Yes, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
nice.
Yeah, same everything, just
Okay.
got.
Podium,
pushed back. Yep.
tabernacle, nice,
Yep.
original.
Well, that was,
Including the wall.
Yes.
Yes, it was the same. Right.
Father Nick made him take it apart piece by piece, nail by nail, so he could relocate it.
Yep.
And that was, when I got here, that was there. It was
Yeah.
that dark wood.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, it matched everything else, loved it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Father Nick liked his wood. That's
There's a
for
little
sure.
corner up in the roof there, you can see that's what the wood was. Dark wood.
Oh, way up there, yeah.
We kept that, it's just kind of a memory.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
What other changes do you remember? Marilyn, do you have any?
I remember the choir loft, climbing up those steep stairs with the little kids, and then trying to make them sit still while we focused on what was going on down here.
Yeah.
And I remember early on, must have been during some construction, we came late, and Father Zimmer made us come all the way up and sit in the chairs on the altar.
What?
In front of everyone.
Wow. And you
So
still
we
stayed.
shouldn't come late.
Ouch.
Oh, he hated
Wow.
people that came late and left early, cause we'd get lectures. Okay, all you late people. Oh, he says mass isn't done until you have the last blessing.
Exactly.
And that's what happened, but it was good. It was a good thing.
I can go back and remember when Father Lynn was here, it was hot in here because there was no air conditioning,
Sure.
there was nothing. He started mass at 6:30 in the summertime. He had a mass at 6:30. And I remember all the 4 children at that time, and we would be out and somebody said, how do you have them all dressed at that time? It's not the kids I remember trying to get Don moving.
Well,
But it was good, you know.
I know up until 1971 or 70, we were a mission church. Father Joe lived in Big Lake, came over here. Well, spring, summer, and fall, there were so many people up here because of the lakes. That's when they started, the bishop started sending, there was 3 teachers, priests, Franciscans, that lived up in St. Cloud at the high school there, and they took turns coming down here. So it was Father Jude, Father Allen,
Yes.
Father Lawrence.
Good memory. Wow.
Yeah.
Father Jude, he was quite the speaker.
Yes.
He went off on tangents, but
Oh.
he had this voice, you didn't mind sitting there listening to him.
well,
And Father Lawrence, after his hitch was done here at Cathedral High School, he got sent to Vietnam. And he'd get out of the helicopter when they go out to pick up the wounded, and he would bless these soldiers before they put them on the chopper. Well, 3 of the choppers were wiped out while he was on the ground.
Oh.
I mean, the entire cockpit was just bullet ridden.
Wow.
He went through 3 pilots, put it that way.
I never heard that story.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So,
But we could, yeah, there's a lot of stories if we remember, or we could pull them back into our mind, let's say.
Well, one of the legends about Father Lynn is that back then when it started, of course, Mass was in Latin, and then they changed like in the 60s, mid-60s, they had to. And he was apparently very good with his Latin, but wasn't real good with the translation. So at the end of the Mass, do you guys know this story? At the end of the Mass, the saying is, "The Mass is ended, go in peace." Well, he got the M mixed up. So he said, put the M on the ending, so it's mending, which means the is ended, the is mended, go in peace. If you get my gist.
Yes.
Yep. And everyone like, he goes, oh no, I mean, look, I meant, and then he said it again. He goes, oh no, I can't. He just could not get it. He says, you know what I mean, just get out of here.
you know what I mean, just go home.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good. Oh, my.
He was good. He'd like to come to our place for dinner,
Nice.
and then he would play Twister with our
Oh, really?
4 little kids. I
Oh,
had a
that's
picture
fun.
somewhere, and I couldn't find it, you know, but, no, because he didn't have a telephone, because we didn't have a phone for 8 years out in the country, so, he was quiet, he said. So, anyway.
And that actually leads well into, the next question is just what about some of the priests and staff that you've had over the years? What are some other stories about that?
Father Mischke.
No, he was after Father Zimmer, though.
Yeah, he was here for 1 year,
Yes,
He didn't like it.
and he's a very quiet man.
yep.
Not a very good speaker, but his subject was always interesting. The thing is, for some reason, I don't know why, I always ushered in Saturday evening Mass. And before Mass, me and Father Mischke would sit back in that sacristy and tell Polak jokes. I don't know
Boy, would
why.
you get canned now.
Well, anyway, that was just one of my memories of Father
Oh, Father
Mischke.
Mischke, yeah.
Sure was a
Father
smart
Bernard,
man.
Bernard his name was Bernard, yeah.
Bernie, they could call.
Yeah.
But Father Nick came in 72,
Yep. I
you
remember
know,
that.
so, good.
What was his last name?
Father
Zimmer.
Father Zimmer.
Oh, that's his
He was a good German. Yeah.
He reminded me of St. Francis.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
He would get that wagon all full of his water buckets, and he'd drive real slow with the tractor all the way to the cemetery, and he'd water all the trees he planted.
He planted all the trees.
He just was
Happy.
such an,
Yep. He mowed.
oh, he was a good man.
Wow.
Just
Yes.
a good man.
He
And
did.
died just, what, 2 years ago? A year ago?
No,
20, a year ago.
it was
Yeah,
just this
2020.
past winter.
Was this
that
past
we
winter?
did.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so I was there at the
Yeah,
funeral.
Yeah.
And he got buried underneath the tree. I thought that was the best.
Yes, we went to his funeral.
He sure liked his trees.
He was a good man.
I was going to bring the quilt today, but it will be on display on the 22nd, that the ladies of the parish crocheted their name on a triangle piece of material, and the rest of some ladies put it together and gave it to him when he was leaving. And they told us at his funeral that it was on the end of his bed for the last 36 years.
He kept it on his bed.
And it shows it, it's very
Oh, that's
warm.
That's nice.
It's at my house now, and I will bring it in and display it. So,
Good soul.
Mhm.
But then we got Father Mischke in that time because I think the bishop was really smart. Because I don't think any parishioner would have really liked the next priest
Whoever
coming,
came.
because everybody adored Father Nick. I mean,
Yeah.
he was always around, no matter what, you could count on him. And so we had Father Mischke for that 1 year, and then we got Father Paul, so. And then everybody got to
settled in and we're
like
good.
him too.
But we miss
Especially when you
Father
looked at
Zimmer.
the bottom of his vestment robes and he was wearing combat boots because he just came from Camp McCoy.
Oh, jeez, really?
I can remember a time Johnny was downstairs doing breakfast, and Father called, and he got John on the phone. He says, "I am stuck at the airport." He says, "I need a ride." So John went down to the airport to pick him up because he was coming back from a weekend.
Oh, one of their weekend
Yeah.
exercises,
Yep.
yeah.
So John went and got him. Father came, "Well, if you wanna get back in a hurry, grab the cook."
Yeah, right.
So,
Father
there he is
Paul,
up there on the street.
oh, excuse me.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Father Paul asked if he could run his dogs on our place when we lived over in the woods. And we said, sure, bring the dogs. The Springer Spaniels. And he ran them once, and they were so full of sandburrs.
Oh.
He never brought them back.
Oh, shoot. Oh.
Yeah, oh, yeah, we got
You
sandburrs.
didn't clean them out, huh?
So Margaret, do you have any memories of staff, of anybody?
No, I have not. I do.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Father Paul married us.
Okay.
And so that was cool, cause he helped Gary get his annulment. And then he married us here. And so that was cool.
Very
Yes.
He
special.
said,
Father Zimmer married all 5 of ours, and at one of them, he said, "You really want to get married?" No, and that's one that failed. So,
Oh.
anyway, but he married all 5 of them. He did come for Jeffrey, the last one, because he was already unbranded. But they called him and asked him, and he did it as a favor. So, it was great. I know.
Nice.
yeah, he was good.
My husband was converted to the Catholic faith, and Father Zimmer was really instrumental in that. It wasn't me, it was our wonderful priest. And Don decided he wanted to be Catholic when our first child was going to take his first communion, so that we could all be totally a family. And so he had the first communion, first penance, and confirmation all on the same day. Done.
Wow.
So that's really a special memory for us.
Yes, isn't that neat? We had 3 of them that joined the church with Father Zimmer,
Nice.
the in-laws.
So I bet you all have memories of different sacraments that happened here? Baptisms, confirmations, weddings,
All of them.
funerals, unfortunately.
Boy.
Weddings.
Remember? You have a story?
Oh, I got
Show me
100
more.
of them. My first time I served Mass, I was 10 years old. It was New Year's Day. After that, well, our old farm was just on the way here from Big Lake, and that's where he lived. So when he had a wedding, Father Joe would stop and pick me up, and I'd be the altar
Oh.
boy. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 100 weddings. Back in those days, people got married.
In the church,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
How
so.
novel.
It was, remember one instance though, this one guy was home on leave, he was in the Navy, he came home to get married, and he was so nervous, he opened up a pack of cigarettes in the sacristy, he was in the back up here then, and he went outside and he started walking around the church, And when he came back in, his cigarettes were all gone. He had smoked every one of them.
Oh,
Jeez.
That was so funny. And then another time, one of the grooms, forget who it was, he got sick right on the altar. Barfed right there.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Oh, poor guy.
I know, jeez.
And a couple of other times, the altar boys that were with me were nervous. I helped because I knew what to do. They were there because they were members of the family. And they fainted. Bang, they fell on, cracked their heads right on the steps of the altar. Oh, right here. Blood. There's a lot of times. And then, but when Father Paul first came here, he decided we should have a real tree on the altar. He found somebody that had a tree in their backyard that had to be moved because they're putting up a deck. So we all go out to this place, we cut down this tree. Well, the snow was deep that winter, so Dave Ehrenfeit came out with his tow truck, hooked a cable onto it, and winched it out onto the road. And I don't know if, I think it might have been John Franizel.
Wow.
He showed up with an old hay wagon, and we managed to get that tree on top of that hay wagon. We got it in here, and we're parked out there, and had to come in through the side door. Well, we didn't do the trim on the door any good, or the pews, because of all the branches and sap. We got it up here, put the stand on it, went to stand it up, it was too tall.
Yeah.
Well, Father, what do you want to do? You want to take it back out, or you want to bring the chainsaw in here? And he said, he's sitting there exhausted. He goes, bring the saw in here.
Yes.
So we did that. That was the year that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a big movie. So the kids got a big kick out of it. They were playing with a chainsaw on the altar.
Yeah.
And talk about a pile of sawdust.
Yes.
But we got through it, got it up. We survived.
We don't want to forget about who our Santa Claus had been for years and years.
Oh.
Ron had been,
Ah.
played Santa Claus for very many years.
Yeah.
All the children just loved that Santa Claus, and so.
Still
we thank
happens.
him. It still happens.
Yeah.
We really needed to thank him because he did a good
Yes.
job, right?
It's a lot of years making toys in the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and through a lot of Santa's helpers too.
Exactly.
We're out a lot of those guys. And then, well, when this thing first got added onto right here, Father Nick decided he wanted a tree there, and a tree over there, and a tree behind the altar. He wanted branches in all the arches, boughs, I should say. And he had the worst taste in Christmas trees of anybody you ever met in your life. He didn't want to cut down a pretty looking tree. He
No.
said, oh, this is good enough here.
Yeah.
So we went to the windbreak up at the cemetery. Remember that thing we thinned out? Yeah. That's where the trees came from.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God, they were ugly.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Not God's finest, huh?
No, you couldn't, you had to leave the pretty ones there.
Yeah.
Or just turn it until you get
Yeah,
the right
right.
spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Get your nippers, Ron, and just clip off that branch so it isn't hitting me when I'm standing behind the altar.
Yeah.
I said, okay, Father.
Yeah.
Well, what activities do you remember being part of here? Like what groups or
Yeah.
organizations?
Oh, we had the
Way back.
altar society for years.
Mhm.
That went on for, we put on dinners.
Many years.
Oh, ham dinners, ham and chicken. Oh,
But
man. it'd
I
be-
found interesting reading the newspaper that we had, how it started before anything else was built here in the very first year,
Uh-huh.
that the Elk River Church, they had,
Andrews.
Andrews,
Yep.
ladies and men came to help put on the dinner. And it served 1,400 people
That's amazing.
that time. And it just blows me,
Wow.
because today we don't get that amount of
No,
people.
no.
Yeah.
Where did they come from?
Jeez. That's
You
amazing.
know, back in the day, all the churches supported each other.
Support each other,
You know.
Yeah, they go to different festivals.
Yeah,
Yes.
they make the rounds,
Sure.
especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
Good support.
So,
I remember working in that terrible hot kitchen back there for the banquets or the dinners. And as soon as a place was emptied out, it was filled again because people,
you couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
no.
Right.
I can remember the first dinner I worked at, Ron's mom,
Ah.
Miss Ann.
Exactly.
What's your name? Barb. Okay, grab this, you go help Agnes Thompson peel that sack of potatoes, okay? Or otherwise you're cutting cabbage, I mean, she had that kitchen just humming.
Bam.
And everybody had a smile on their face. Everybody
That's
enjoyed
key.
it.
That's key.
And then afterwards, we all have a cup of coffee. And go, oh, how did we manage that?
Right.
Man.
What just happened?
See, I should have never came that day.
Yeah.
I would have never got volunteered for anything.
It lasted for 25 years, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, sure
No, I
did.
think that's what the strength of the parish was, because so many people volunteered.
And,
stepped up.
and not just in church.
Mhm.
When we moved out to the farm, like I said, in the middle of nowhere, the first people to come up was Ron's mother, Ann, and Grandma Luby. And both of them came, or they came in with 2 apple pies
Aw.
to welcome us into the community.
Aw,
I thought, how wonderful is that?
that is
You
wow.
know.
Yeah, back in the day, we had the guild. Since we were in
Yeah.
the same guild together.
Mhm.
We used to get together at least once a month.
We did.
Right, I think, and we had our little projects that we did, and
Would you meet in different people's houses or here?
Mm-hmm. houses.
Okay.
Yeah, and who's ever hosting it, had a little luncheon type thing, and we got to know all the
Oh,
ladies.
yeah.
And most of them, like, we were in the North Guild, they were neighbors too, so
Oh.
we got to really know the neighborhood.
Right.
I don't even know the people living next to us, they
Yeah.
never come out of the house.
Isn't that awful?
Right.
They
You know,
don't
they
come
just,
out of the
when they,
house.
once they leave in the morning, when
Yeah.
they come
They're
home, it's
gone.
dark, you never see these people,
Sure.
so. But back in the day, we really had,
Somebody called this a bedroom community, and I think it is, and that's what they do. They leave and they come back and shut the door.
Because back in the day, this is probably considered a farm community, do you think?
Yes.
yeah.
Sort of a lake
I
community.
never locked
Fremont,
my
but-
doors.
Yeah.
I never hardly shut my
I
doors.
think we were more of a lake community than
Lake
a
community.
farm,
Yeah.
Even have a
because
lot.
there were so
yeah.
just cabins around Lake Fremont and, Lake,
Yeah.
and Lake Ann.
And for a lot of people in cities, this was coming up north.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going up north and you go to Zimmerman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it took an hour and a half to get here.
Yeah.
Probably true.
That's
It's a
true.
5-minute commute like it is now.
That is very true.
You know, when I look around this building, there's so many memories that I can't. I've been thinking about it and trying to organize in my head how I feel about this. And like I told Father this morning, I already said goodbye to this building. And then he got me over here at 11. Anyway, what I think about is community. And most people sat in the same pews every week, went to the same mass. We got to know them and appreciate them, whatever. But anyway, we saw them go through birth and tragedies. And this one lost a son, and this one lost a husband, and it is in my heart. It's there, and I appreciate community. So as far as the building, it's just a building, but it does hold memories. And I'm just grateful for all the congregation. It's been quite a journey. And
I'd have to agree with you. That's-
Yeah.
It's got a lot of memories. You know, when you
Yeah.
bring your kids and you raise your kids to be good Catholics, and it's, you go through all the trials and errors and everything downstairs, all the religion down there, because that used to be on Wednesday nights. That's it, nothing else was happening except religion. And then they used to hold religion class on Saturday mornings for the people that had to work,
Oh.
which really, it worked out for a lot of people. Good old Nora, God bless her heart.
Yeah.
Oh, she gave, and Melissa Hartfield, my God, they gave their time and effort, and they
I was gonna
did
say,
good by us.
Mary Pinier spent a lot of time.
Yeah, she was
with-
the secretary.
She was the
for
secretary for many years, and she was one of the best. I think she left when Father Tony came in.
Yeah, so did Melissa and so did Nora.
Hmm.
Yeah. a lot of them left then, so,
Yeah.
but that's time on,
Well, and
we're under the bridge.
Marilyn brings up a good point, that sense of, the church is so much more than just a building. So you talked about community, but are there other words that come up to describe what that community was like? How would you describe the
It
people
was
here?
more like family, I think,
Yeah.
cause you really got to know the people here.
Yeah.
And you always wanted to, and it wasn't being snoopy, it wasn't being gossipy, you just really wanted to know if they were okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you asked them, how are you doing, and you really, like when I asked them, I really wanna know if you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and everybody seemed to be like that back in the day. They really did care here.
Mhm.
And Marilyn's right, we all sat in the same spots, you know.
Yeah.
I always sat up here because I did communion every Sunday for 40 years, so that's, you
Close
get to the,
proximity.
and Donna and
And Ann?
and no, Donna, Hanson, and
Oh,
Roger,
yeah.
they sat behind me, and my one son Tony was a little stinker when I came, and he would not behave. So Donna would say, "Oh, I'm gonna sit behind you today." I said, "Okay." So and Tony started up, and she just gave him the biggest hug. And he was like that. He says, when we got up to church, he says, "That's the lady that hugged me." I said, "Yeah, and from now on, Donna's gonna sit behind you in church every Sunday. So if you don't behave, you're gonna get a hug from her, because she really likes you." So he said, "Oh."
And it worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fun.
She was a good lady. Good lady.
You dared do that back then. You wouldn't dare
Oh,
do that today.
no, not nowadays.
No, no, and my kids would say, "Why did I be so nosy?" I'm not being nosy, I'm talking to these people.
Mhm.
We keep asking them questions. Well,
Conversation.
Curiosity.
It's,
You
it's
care.
that generation, they don't
Yeah.
wanna be asked
There's a
questions.
lot, there's a lot of mistrust. Back in the
Yes.
day when our parish was a lot smaller, we didn't have that mistrust in people. We genuinely cared about them.
Right,
So I
right.
just find that
Right.
we're a lot more compassionate too.
Yes.
Because when we
Yes.
had the awful tragedies here within the parish,
Yes, we did.
there were a number of them, and people just reached out their hands, and
Yeah,
everybody was hugged, and everybody was there for them.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I guess my word, Molly, would be support.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, if I felt bad about something or something happened to me, there were people that cared,
mhm.
Yeah.
and you knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knew where to go to find some of that.
Yep.
Mhm. Which is huge. Really huge.
I know when we merged in 2010, that was tough for a lot of folks
Oh.
because things were changing.
We did.
And I was the pastor of both parishes. We twinned before that. But I think, the Pius people really embraced the change well.
Majority.
I mean, some other folks had a tougher time, but I think a lot of the people who had grown up in the parish said, like, well,
We do what we need
another
to do.
change and bring more people to love, more people to support.
Yeah, well, I think my biggest thing was, when I was growing up, I grew up in Waite Park, so St. Joseph's was, so I went from that church and that was a tight German
Yeah.
community,
Mm-hmm.
to coming here. And so I went to two different churches, and you get that feeling, and all of a sudden you feel like you're gonna lose that for some way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm adjusting, I think, fairly well. But,
That's a big
just kinda
change.
change.
Yeah.
Sometimes change is really hard.
Oh, absolutely.
It's,
Except when we started, we got to know everybody. We would walk through the door and we would welcome them and introduce ourselves and find out where they were from and
Yep.
that kind of thing. So
Yep.
at the very beginning, I'm sure you knew that probably, Ron, more than I did. I came a couple of years later, but no, everybody was welcoming. We would get together after Mass and have coffee, and get to know the people that are joined us.
nowadays, everybody's in such a hurry to leave, right? They don't have time. I mean, and I get it, cause, my kids work long hours, they work weekends too.
Right.
So when they get a Sunday, they wanna be there for their kids, and I understand that.
And when we
But-
did merge, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do the masses. You know, because there was 3 masses in Pius, 3 masses at St. Edward's. What do we do? And we overlapped for a while when we were twinned, because I was a
Right.
pastor of both. And then we had all these committees about what to do, and it's your brother, Keith, who came up with the idea of saying, why don't we alternate each weekend? And we're like, that's brilliant, because for a lot of places what they do when they merge, they have the 8:30 at this parish, the 10:30 at that
Yeah,
parish,
and you're
and
right.
everybody just goes to the 8:30 from that parish and 10:30, and they never merge. And the brilliance of what happened here is that we had to merge. And there were people who said, well, I'm not going to the other church. And we said, well,
Right.
that's your,
Yeah.
It's
or they'd say like,
choice.
I'm not gonna serve at the other church. And we say, well, you can't serve them. Or you can't minister, you can't help out, because we have to change and be one. But I think for a lot of the St. Pius people, they're
That's
like,
hard.
okay, it was hard, but okay,
Yeah,
this is what we gotta do. We are bigger than a building.
yeah, sometimes.
It's still hard. It can still be hard, yeah.
Still tough.
It's really hard to let go.
Oh,
It's really hard to let go, especially when all the memories,
yeah, yeah,
but.
right.
What aspects about the building are you gonna miss? What parts of it?
I just think it feels warm. And I like the structure of it, I just
I like the
feel
wood.
like it's, I don't know, sense of peace for me. People always ask me, why do you like to sit in church? I said, because nobody will talk to me.
You have your
Well,
quiet-
when you're a
have
mother,
your
you got
quiet-
4 kids yelling at you, and when you're in
Yeah.
church, that's
Yep.
quiet.
You
time.
get your quiet place.
And that's where I can reflect, and this place always had that feeling for me. And I don't feel that at the North Campus, and I'm sorry to say, but it'll take a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm sure, but.
Yeah.
That's why. I
Or
like
maybe
the
I'll
daily-
wait till we get to the next one.
That's why I like the daily masses too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's quiet, meditating time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it sure has changed a lot over the years.
What do you most want us to remember about either this building or this community as we head forward?
The community. And I go up to the cemetery, St. Pius Cemetery, and I know most of the names.
Yep, so do I.
That is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's kind of sad when I look at pictures, the old ones that we pulled up. I think, my gosh, 3/4 of these people are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know?
most of them I went to the funerals for.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
You know, this whole area is growing, of course.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
have a number of people just snooping or checking us out. And inevitably, when we have our new member night, they will say, I felt welcomed.
Oh, good.
Almost
Well, that's
everybody
good.
says, I came in and I was expecting no one would talk to me, felt welcome. People said hello, they introduced. So all that good stuff you're talking about that happened way back when still is there. Even though we've lost so many,
Yeah.
it's still going, which
Well,
is
that
incredible.
means we passed it on.
I think so.
Absolutely.
I think so.
Torch.
I felt welcomed
Oh.
when I found out that it was a feast of St. Pius X, the 21st of August, and that was the day we got married. I looked it down and I said, this is our church.
This is home.
Yeah.
This is home.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Good thing. So as we think about these next steps, what's kind of your hope for the parish as we continue moving forward?
I just hope we get that warm fuzzy feeling back. I don't know. I figure I don't have to volunteer as much as I used to.
Wrong.
Yes, right.
Still want
I put-
everybody to volunteer.
I put in my time.
I know.
So
and
did
that's-
I.
And
But
it's
here
the
I am.
legacy that it's all of our church. It's not, I put in my
This-
time.
Because
This is-
Ann Matheson was in her 70s, she got to retire, didn't she?
Things have
Yeah.
changed. 70 is the new, 80 is the new 70.
Oh, jeez.
I think.
Well, I got.
But she
That's
still
not
made
fair.
it to every bingo game.
That's
Yeah,
right.
she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Wow.
All those ladies that taught us so much in that kitchen.
Yeah.
I will never forget those women.
Lots of good mentors, that's for sure.
It was just, they were awesome.
Agnes Honor peeling potatoes.
And Agnes Thompson. I didn't know
Okay.
that lady before then. And did I find out she was funny? Oh, wow. But Agnes Honor was a hoot.
Yeah.
She was a
So,
hoot.
so going on that, like Molly said, what do you hope you can pass on to the next generation? And Molly said, what is your hope for the new church? You were
What do you wanna
given
pass
a
on?
gift.
Accepting the new people, if we haven't met them, introduce yourself and get to know them. And hopefully they'll reciprocate and wanting to do that,
Yeah.
you know.
Hand 'em a
I met a lot of the Princeton
potato
people.
peeler when they come in the
You know.
kitchen.
Want to say that again?
I said, hand them up a potato peeler when they come in the kitchen.
I like that. This
Just
is
what Ann
It's
did.
your church. Welcome.
Yeah.
Get,
Yeah.
roll up your sleeves.
Sit
Get
here.
We need, yes, I totally agree.
Yeah.
She
How
was
about
a
you, Marilyn? What do you pass
I
on?
guess what I would hope for the new church is that the people coming in would get the benefit of the Catholic faith.
Mhm.
It seems that there's so much going on right now.
Yeah.
If you can count on church, it helps a lot.
Yep.
I would hope that they'd come into church and join in and grow in their faith. I'm always a little bit more deep, philosophical, but really, what church has meant to me is just, you can't overestimate it.
Right.
That's true.
And I hope that for the young.
Ron, how about you? What do you hope for the new church?
Oh. One spot.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to
Yeah.
communicate and get to be friends with people when you only see some of them here, some of them there. This group over here likes to work with that group, and this group over here likes to work with that group. And I sit there every year at the Fall Fest at the beer stand, and I see all this. They segment off, you know. It didn't used to be like that.
Yeah.
So once we have one spot for all of us to go every week, I'm hoping, you know, everybody will be more relaxed with each other. So,
Marilyn, I'm with you on building a deeper faith. And I know it's gonna be hard with the new, especially if we don't have the church built for years and there's so many things that'll fall into place. But I'm hoping that most of the congregation will still remember their deep faith and work at that. And some of the old-fashioned things that we've kind of lost along the way will come back.
Yeah.
That would be good.
How about you,
We've
Ms. Miller?
lost a lot. We have
Yes, we have.
lost a lot through the years of people coming, young people coming to help, and they have to come and help. Because the old people aren't gonna last forever. So they've
See,
got to
Father?
start stepping up.
I'm
But we
guessing
can
that,
still try.
I'm guessing that Ann Mathiasen said the same thing. These young people have to keep
Yes,
coming.
right.
When I started, you know, with Ann, she says, "Oh, you brought your kids," and my daughter Tammy and Tracy were pretty darn little. I bought coloring books and colors, sat them in a corner, and that's where they stayed until I was done. But people don't think the same way these days.
No.
You know, they just, I don't know. I brought them with, and after the years, when I started decorating the church, then my kids always came to help me with that too. They got to the point where, will you stop volunteering?
Yeah.
Every time you volunteer, we all volunteer.
But now but they volunteer now.
But they
so,
volunteer.
Yeah, which
So-
is that legacy again that you pass on.
So, if parents would do that now, bring their kids, and I always like to see the little kids out in those stands, you know, helping out. Not that they're doing a whole heck of a lot, but they're there and
Yeah.
they're helping.
They're in one spot
Like-
and they stay there.
I like to see that, especially in that, where they sell the plants.
Yeah,
You know,
country store.
they all busy straightening up that
Doing
plant.
that.
I like
I
seeing
remember,
that.
I guess, when our Tom was like 10, 11, way out in the country, he couldn't drive a bicycle usually because it was all gravel roads. And he wanted to be a
Gravel,
server.
it was all sand.
It was all sand, right? Not gravel, sand, right?
We weren't progressive enough to be gravel.
And he wanted to become a server. So Father had his schedules for 9 o'clock in the morning, I think, and we were both working, so he was gonna bike. Well, he left too early because he didn't know how long it would take to drive the Zimmerman or ride the Zimmerman. So he got there an hour before Father was scheduled to have the boys come in. So Father took him out to breakfast.
Oh, wasn't that
And I
nice?
thought, wow, that was kind of neat, so he'll never forget
Is
that.
that Father Zimmer?
Yes.
Oh, must have had toast.
Yeah, he probably don't know, not at that time.
Well, we are lucky enough that we have a number of young people joining the
Yeah.
church
Yes,
and
it's
people
wonderful.
bringing them back, and we're
Yes.
lucky enough to have seasoned folks here who are welcoming them and sharing their
That's a good
stories.
word.
And it's our hope that people tuning into this will, again, just find the little stories about not only Pius, but St. Edward's, Christ our Light, that they say, yeah, this is who we are. It's more than just a building.
Yeah.
Church is more than a building. It's the
Yeah.
community. It's the
Exactly.
support. It's the funny times. It's the goofy things that didn't happen perfectly.
Yes.
And like we talked before, it is the presence of Christ.
Yes.
Christ being
Absolutely.
present in ministry and in service, in tears, in peeling potatoes.
Yeah.
It's
That's
that
my
presence
share
of
that.
saying. So we're so lucky to have all of you here, but also even our name kind of says it all. that
Yes,
it's
Christ our light.
Christ our light. That we are. Good. Any last comments? Do you want to make sure you say?
I don't know, I just appreciate how you have worked so hard to keep things going during this COVID, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
You could have sat back a little bit and relaxed, and you didn't. And Father's homilies are always enlightening,
Yes.
and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
How you come up with that stuff, I don't know. But being continually fed with that is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Best.
we're very lucky.
And I'll take that. It's really a team effort because I get a lot of my inspiration from the staff who talk, and we're so fortunate to have Molly reflect for us. Deacon Mark preach too. So it really is a team. We're lucky about that. So
You're lucky you got a good cameraman.
I know.
I was just
exactly.
gonna say.
You
thank
really do a
Jenny
nice
for
job.
Yes.
Those that don't
presenting
come
the
to
mass.
mass at least can watch it.
Well, and that's actually, that goes into the hope too, is that now because of the pandemic, because of having to be so virtual, not that that makes up any time for being in person, we can share what we do here with so many more people. You know, I mean, people from other states are writing in and, you know, saying, hey, we love watching you on, you
Right.
know, on YouTube. And so that's a huge piece of the Holy Spirit working too, and Christ's presence being shared
Yep.
in so many places. So, yeah, so there's, you know, a little bit of hope in the midst of the tragedy, and we keep moving forward. And I will say, it's just I'm so grateful to have such strong foundational members to this place, because you keep us on track and you keep coming up with ideas, and that's really helpful. I mean, it's nice to be able to know that, because I think intergenerational is the best way to do church, you know? I mean, to have the young and the seasoned, you know, and everybody in between. It wouldn't be good to have all one, you know, and so we learn from each other and the wisdom that's there. So thank you all for
yeah, thank you for
sharing
your
over
years,
the years.
your years of service, your years of praying, your years of
Yeah.
supporting each other, your years of making this family work. Thank you. Thank all of you for tuning in to us.
Yes.
God bless you all.
Thank you.
And I hope you don't have to censor out too much of it.
When we first did the church with Father Zimmer, he had the kids every child was gonna get an envelope, and they had to, you know, for their offering,
Oh.
they were gonna pay for the pews.
Oh.
So then they would stick gum underneath them.
Oh.
I figured if they wouldn't have to pay
They
for them, they would
knew.
take care of them.
Yeah.
I thought that was the
That's
best.
neat.
My dad always said, Father Joe had an angel, a guardian angel on his shoulder, on each shoulder when he was driving.
Oh,
That
because,
was, oh gosh, he was a terrible driver. Sometimes they picked me up in that Volkswagen, we come in here, we made it from Orrock to here inside of 10 minutes. We had a
Wow.
neighbor lady that could do it in 20 minutes, and we thought she was crazy for endangering her family. But he did it in 10 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
There's a little screen bar, freight bar up there on the dash, and you hung on to that thing.